I'd like to welcome Charley Hoffman into the interview room here at the Genesis Invitational. Charley's making his 17th start at the event, tied with Matt Kuchar for the most of any player in the FedEx Cup era. So Charley, qualifying for the event through the Aon Swing 5 after your runner-up finished the WM Phoenix Open, what did it mean to kind of come off the course there and realize you're getting into the Genesis this week?
Yeah, obviously it was a huge accomplishment. Obviously I'd like to have been in all the signature events and the Masters and all the majors and all that other stuff, but obviously I knew I'd be close. I wasn't sure, and then was doing my post-playoff interview, and I think Doug said something like that you made it, and it sort of took me back. I'm like, awesome. I was fairly disappointed last year when I didn't play because it was the first time I hadn't played in my career, and it's a place I love playing, one of the all-time golf courses in the world. I came up here as a kid in '95, watched the PGA Championship, Elkington win, so it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and obviously love playing in front of the California fans. I'm a San Diego guy. I'm not a big LA guy, but I am a California resident and a fan, so I like displaying our talents in front of everybody, so it's obviously very, very happy to be here.
I understand you were supposed to be skiing this
Yep.
week instead of here, but could you talk a little bit about how these two exemption categories through the Aon Swing 5 and the Aon Next 10 can kind of change the trajectory very quickly of a tour member's season and career?
Yeah, fortunately and unfortunately, I've been on the board that's been part of this, limiting fields, building purses, and obviously majority of the membership didn't love limiting the fields, but we thought it was necessary with not isolating any events and getting the best players in the world together. But I know I was adamant about making sure the top players, not the top player, the hot players were able to work their way into the events. My example last year was Taylor Montgomery. That guy deserved to be in all the events. He started off hot in the fall and played well, and he should have been in all the events. But obviously that was for my example of this year. And you got the Christian Behaden who this year, and you got a bunch of good players playing good, and they deserve to be in these events. And I think it's accomplishing what it's supposed to do. You got guys that just come off the Korn Ferry Tour that have the ability to get in these events if they play well for the remainder of the year and not just the swing. So I think it's working so far, but we'll see. The future will see what happens.
All right, we'll take some questions out here. If you have a question, we'll get a microphone to you. We're going to start with Chris right here in the middle, and then we'll go to Dan. Or sorry, Dan, you can start.
So you were on the pack starting in 2019, 2020, which I'm sure kind of became more of a undertaking than maybe you might have thought at the beginning. Do you feel like there's a little bit of a weight off your shoulders not being involved in those kind of discussions anymore?
Yeah, I mean, technically, 19, 20, yeah. I've been on the board of the pack for so many years in a row, it's sort of run together.
Right, that was kind of what I was saying, was like, how has that job evolved to become more than it used to be?
Yeah, prior to my first board stint was, we talk, how do we fix slow play? How do we get guys to play faster? And just some stuff that's obviously very crucial to our product and how we display it to the public, but not quite as important as trying to get guys back on the course after COVID and making sure players stay on tour. But it took a ton of time. There's a combination. I wasn't healthy for a couple years, and I expended a ton of time into trying to make sure the tour ended up in a great spot, because we know this is the best tour in the world, and we want the best players to play against each other more often. And it did take a lot of time. But it was something I embraced, and I liked doing it. But as I've told a lot of people, that I'm embracing being a professional golfer again. And I really like that a lot more.
Yeah, and then you're roughly the same age as Tiger, and he's obviously had injury problems that are extremely significant. How are you able to stay kind of motivated at your age to come back from that? And obviously it's working out.
Yeah, I don't know any better. I use the comment, I've said this a few times in local radio shows, I think I'm just dumb enough to think when I first got on tour that I was good enough to play on the PGA Tour, because I wasn't a world beater. I was a pretty good player, and I was able to do it. And then now I think I'm just dumb enough to think I can compete against the young guys still. And I love competing, and I said this in my interview after I lost, is I'm extremely happy the way I played, but there's something inside me that wants to get that W. I don't like losing, so I think that fire is still burning. If I would have got the W, obviously I'd have been a lot of weight off the shoulders, but that fire is still there, and my goal is not to compete this week. It's to win. It's to play against the best players in the world and do what I used to do on a regular basis and show up on the biggest stages and compete to win signature events and major golf championships.
We'll go to Chris right here.
2 questions. One, how did the family, I'm sure they're happy for you, but how did they take the ski trip cancellation
Well,
news?
it's not canceled. They're bragging, and they're up there right now. They're probably on the slopes. So I was getting pictures all morning of them getting ready to go. And they get ski schools this morning, snow in Mammoth. It looked great, and the weather's perfect. So don't get me wrong. I love being here, but I would have loved a lot to be up there skiing with them on the slopes for the next couple of days.
And then to the casual viewer, last week kind of seems out of left field, but did you notice something about your game in the weeks leading up to that kind of...
No, I've been saying for a little bit of time now is my body feels good, and if my body feels good, I think I can compete against the best in the world. Obviously, I've been in contention in a lot of golf tournaments, and I've lost golf tournaments before, and there's not a question about that, but I'm just proud of how I competed coming down the stretch, and it's sort of what I said to myself when I had the lead around the turn was, I got to keep it down. There's a lot of birdie holes out there, and I shot 4 under par on the back 9, and I lost. Nick won, and so to be in that position, and I hadn't been there in a while, I really felt really good. I didn't feel uncomfortable. I felt better in that position than some weeks when I'm trying to make a cut. And when you're in the lead, you're sort of free flowing and you're feeling good. You're not really searching for anything. So I felt great. The mental side was good because you never know how you're gonna react when you haven't been there in a while. And I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I was happy the way my body and mind dealt with all the adversity and the whole tournament. So I'm obviously excited for this week at the Genesis.
Todd?
Charlie, for a guy who is wearing that pad on his back heading out to the playoffs, skiing's not a issue? Skiing's not a worry?
We won't know that. It could have been. No, it's been a couple years since I've gone because of the bad back, to be completely honest with you. But I was feeling healthy, and I mean, your kids are only young for so long, so they were the sort of the people the kids that wanted, the ones that wanted to go. Obviously, they really wanted to go because they still went with mom, and it could have been an issue, but as I say, I used to be a bumps and mogul guy and jumps. Now I'm a steep groomer. I like to go fast and make big turns, so I think I've been able to handle it.
Have you tried snowboarding?
When I was younger, but I've been skiing since in between my mom's legs since I was 4 years old, going down slopes and stuff like that. So it's something I feel very comfortable with. I don't feel like I put myself in harm. Obviously, on the slopes, you can't control everybody else. So strategically, that's why we picked the middle of this week. It wouldn't be too busy. There's some strategy behind that. So I feel good on the slopes. Obviously, you hear the stories of people blowing out knees and stuff like that. It could have been an issue, but it's not an issue any longer.
Got a serious one for you. There was some chatter on podcasts and social media last week about, an older guy like you who hadn't really contended much. You're about to win, you have a chance to win, and you have all these riches in front of you, all these opportunities in front of you, and the view is, how do all those come to a guy who just has one good week or weekend? What's your answer to that as far as the difficulty of this game to getting to any point that you were in last week?
To get these well, really, there's finishing second on the PGA Tour is pretty dang good, no matter what week it is. So to be able to have the ability to get in these events, it's not. I'm only in this one as of now. I still got to keep playing well to earn my way up. The people change. Who gets in? Who got into Pebble was different than who gets into here. It's an ongoing change, which obviously throughout the year is going to slow down those top 10s and 5s, and but you don't want to lose the dream. I say this, you don't want to lose the dream of being able to play against the best in the world, and this tour is getting slightly smaller at this point in time, and the top players are playing against each other more often. But you always want to give that kid the dream, the kid that just played his butt off on the Corn Ferry Tour that got up here, give him the dream to be able to play against the best in the world and prove to himself he can play. And I think that's what this does. And I I just it keeps the dream alive. It keeps the storyline alive. I mean, in some of those boardrooms, I go, we can't lose that dream that people watch. I mean, people love to watch Tiger Woods win all the time, but people also love to watch people compete against him, see if they can bring down Goliath. And you don't want to lose that. That's why consistency is good out here. But to get a few people that you don't know playing these events, I think it's great for the product, and hopefully competing coming down the stretch is just more storylines. I'm a storyline guy. Not that it gets tiring reporting on Scotty Scheffler hitting another green and making another birdie, but I think people like seeing guys take down the best in the world, and I think that's what people tune in to watch.
One more, if you don't mind. Do you fear a world tour that has just like the top 50 guys and then everybody else playing in regular events? Is that a concern for you?
I don't fear that. I think if you took a big step back and you started the PGA Tour over, you'd probably have a world tour. You'd want to embrace all different countries. You want to grow the game all over the world and be a little bit different. Obviously, our course season, we know when it is, probably now through August or after the NFL season and Super Bowl. It's our course season. Obviously, you'd want to be domestic during that period of time, but I think there's plenty of time to play international golf. And I don't know the breakdown of field size and how that's going to all work out. That's for future board members and all that. But I think it's good to have a world tour. Personally, from a guy that's played domestically probably his whole career, but big picture is to grow the game of golf worldwide and have more access to more people everywhere. We're just a small little blip on the map in the United States, and I would love to grow the game all over the world, and hopefully future generation, younger kids have the ability to play in some countries that weren't fortunate enough, like me, to be able to play. So I think it's a good thing.
Go to Jeff and then Cameron.
Two things. What kind of feedback do you get when you kind of talk about the dreamer aspect of the tour and the kind of Goliath being taken down by the lesser known? What's the? I don't expect you to name names in the boardroom, but what's sort of the vibe you get on that?
I think we all agree, but we also I think we all love the storylines, but I think the media wants to know what product you're putting out there on a regular basis. They're paying a lot of money to sponsor these events, and we can't guarantee a field, and we've never been able to. But this seems to be working so far that we're sort of guaranteeing the top players are going to show up to these signature events. So, and also you're getting guys like myself playing their way in, and so you can have some storylines. Personally, I think maybe 120 players, maybe a little better formula, but you don't want to isolate events that don't mean anything and guys aren't showing up to play. Now, that's a strategic look at the schedule, which I know that the management and team always do and look at what's best for the PGA Tour and its product. And if there's a week off in the schedule, that might be better sometimes. But right now, we have a ton of title sponsors that embrace the PGA Tour, love our product, and love what we do. And it's hard to tell them that we're not going to have an event that week. And that's the great problem we have, is we have great support domestically and internationally, and our players are very good at every level, from the Korn Ferry Tour, the Canadian Tour, or McKenzie Tour. We have great players coming up, and our PGA Tour use proved itself pretty fast that it is a great product. And I remember sitting in a PAC meeting here X amount of years ago, and there was a lot of veteran members didn't like that, and I wouldn't say I pushed hard for it, but that pipeline of young kids is crucial to make sure we keep it, make sure those guys are coming out to play the PGA Tour, because obviously they're ready. Ludwig's ready, Dunlap's ready. It's awesome to watch as a kid that, as Todd knows, unfortunately we're dating both ourselves. He was reporting on me at this time, but when I played my first tour event in San Diego when I was 16 years old, and if I didn't do that and I didn't have that opportunity, I don't know if I'd be sitting here at 47. So we have to keep that pipeline clean for these young kids, these amateurs coming up and play the PGA Tour, back to the dreams, so they can play against the best in the world. And that's almost more crucial than keeping the top players happy, because they're the future generation of golf, and they've watched us play golf for a long time, and they want to play out here. So that younger generation needs to be able to have access to be able to play out here.
And then just quickly, 17 was such a big part of the tournament last week, and it just seems like it gets better every year the way it plays. Do you mind comparing that with the 10th hole here in terms of how they play as short par fours? I don't think you're a big fan of 10, right?
10's a very hard hole. Now, they did make some minor tweaks to the green that I went around yesterday just for a bit, looked at it for just out on that green, sort of. I think they did a good job. I don't think you wouldn't notice it if you weren't a golf geek that they really did anything, but I think they just made that green a little bit more playable, which I think will be great. Back to 17, well, 3 of the days it's a birdie hole, and one of the days is you're trying to get out of there with par, and without trying to make a double, and which that back left pin has been traditionally on, I guess, on Sundays now. It's a doozy. You don't want to putt to it. You don't want to chip to it. You don't want to get close to it. And obviously, you don't want to hit in the water off the tee, being too aggressive. But I wouldn't really compare them. Besides, they're both a great drive ball par four is sort of, I think, the greatest thing in golf, because you can 10 here or 17, you can make a bogey pretty quick, but you can also make a birdie or an eagle. So I love holes that you can have big swings on. So, but strategically, they're just completely different holes.
Time for a couple more. We'll go to Cameron and then Bob.
Charlie, over here.
Where are we going?
Sorry.
Yeah,
right
sorry,
here with
Bob.
the computer.
Yeah, when you mentioned some of the young guys like Dunlap and so forth, it seems like those guys are winning or getting into contention pretty often these days, and they're closer to their teens than they are to the Champions Tour. When you do something like what you did on Sunday, do you feel some solidarity? Like, do the veterans come up to you and say, hey, way to show that we still got it, whether it's Tiger, Adam Scott, or Lucas Glover, or whoever? Do you feel like there's some solidarity amongst the 40-somethings?
Yeah, I mean, ironically, drove up from San Diego yesterday, and the first person I saw in the locker room, which was Tiger, and he goes, "Good job, old man." He's older than me, but it's nice to get that. I mean, walking around the golf course also, "Good job, Mr. Hoffman." I'm not. My dad's behind me. I'm not. I still don't feel like Mr. Hoffman, but it's a little bit different. I still feel young at heart. To be honest, it drives me. I want to beat these young kids. I want to show them that I can still play golf, and that's sort of what keeps me going. I mean, Xander was a kid that I grew up. I wouldn't grow up. I saw coming up through San Diego, and I love playing practice rounds with him because he's obviously a world-class player, and I feed off him. I feed off trying to beat those guys that are in their prime and playing a little bit better than me. But that's what sort of keeps me going, and I want to be out here as long as I can, as long as I'm healthy.
And then Bob over here on the right.
Do you have a wish for what PGA Tour Enterprises might look like, and does it include anything competitive, a competitive aspect to it that might be separate from what we see here every week?
I'm not sure I quite PGA Tour Enterprises is not what runs golf tournaments, so I'm sort of confused what
That's sort of what I was asking.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there might be something that's separate from what we're seeing now. You alluded to the international stuff earlier, and if that could be under that umbrella.
Yes. Well, I think if you look at the way it's set up now, you got the DP World Tour, you've got all our tours sort of combined under this umbrella. And they're all right now feeding this tour. I mean, over a third of our membership's international. I mean, you can't ignore that. I'm sure they'd love to play in front of their home countries and hometowns also. So there's big markets and big countries to dabble into and get rights at, and there's a lot of ways to make money. And I think that's why the SSG stepped in and goes, I think we can streamline this and make this maybe a little bit more productive for the world of golf. I'm glad I'm not on the board making all those decisions any longer, but I have a lot of faith in the players and the staff that are doing it, and they're thinking forward. And I don't think I'm going out on a limb on this, the PGA Tour is going to look different in a handful of years than it does now. And I think it's going to be more international, but I think there's going to be a ton of great domestic events, and I think it's going to be a better product. We're going to evolve. We didn't evolve for a long time because we didn't have to. And someone came along and we had to evolve, and I think we'll still be the elite tour but we're going to look a little bit different, and it's going to be a little bit better, I think.
All right, Charlie, before we let you go, I know there's some tournaments coming up you might not know if you're going to get into or not, but making your 496th career start on the PGA Tour this week, is there a tournament in mind coming up where you want to make number 500?
496, so I'm going to play next week, and I haven't thought of this, obviously, but I can walk you through it. 496 would be at Vidante in Mexico. I am not playing Cognizant with Drew this morning. 498 would hopefully be Bay Hill. 499 would be Players. And I'm scheduled to play Valspar. So it sounds like 500 around Valspar. Obviously, I got to do work to get into Bay Hill. Bay Hill, as far as I know, with the tour staff I've talked to, is going to be harder to get into than the Players Championship. Players Championship, I think I've pretty much locked up my position into that event. So then if I don't get in Orlando, wouldn't be Valspar, and the week after Valspar is.
You put me on the spot here. Houston.
Houston. It's just depending on it. Maybe I make it at Valero, where I've had my most career money ever made there. So maybe we'll try to make it Valero or something like that. So it's coming up. Geez, I didn't even thought about that, but it's when people start saying that it's my 17th or 18th WM Phoenix Open, and this is my 17th or 18th. I don't feel like I've been around that long, but I guess I have. It felt like it took forever to get out here for me after 2000, and I didn't get out here until 2006, but it's flown by since then, and it's the greatest place in the world to play, and I appreciate you guys reporting on us and making us look good.
Well, Charlie, thank you very much for your time, and best of luck this week.
Thank you.